The road wasn't on any map. Elias noticed that before he noticed the silence. His old pickup rolled slowly through curtains of silver rain, headlights slicing across cracked asphalt that seemed to stretch endlessly through a forest of towering pines. According to the GPS, Highway 27 should have continued another 15 miles before reaching the nearest town. Instead, the navigation screen had frozen. A single message blinked across the display. No signal. Recalculating. Then the screen went black. Elias tapped it with his finger. Nothing. His phone had already died despite being fully charged less than an hour earlier. The radio hissed with static. Outside, the rain suddenly stopped. Not gradually. Not naturally. One heartbeat, there was a downpour. The next, silence. Even the windshield wiper seemed too loud. Elias frowned. He pulled the truck to the side of the road and stepped outside. Cold air wrapped around him instantly. The forest stood motionless. No wind. No birds. No insects. Nothing. It felt less like nature and more like a painting pretending to be alive. Then he heard it. A bell. Far away. One slow, deep, ancient gong. It echoed through the trees like something waking after centuries of sleep. Elias turned toward the sound. There, beyond the dense pines, a narrow stone path curved into the forest. He was certain it hadn't been there when he'd driven past seconds ago. Elias Harper had spent the last 10 years documenting forgotten places, abandoned hospitals, lost mining towns, ruined monasteries hidden in mountain ranges. His YouTube channel, Forgotten Footsteps, had earned millions of subscribers because he never chased ghost stories. He chased history, real places, real legends, real mysteries. His viewers trusted him because he always separated myth from fact. But standing before that impossible stone path, for the first time in years, history felt like it was watching him. He grabbed his backpack. Camera, flashlight, notebook, extra batteries. Everything was routine. Everything was familiar, yet his hands trembled without explanation. The path descended gently beneath towering cedar trees, whose trunks were so enormous that 3 grown men couldn't have wrapped their arms around them. The deeper he walked, the quieter the world became. Eventually, he realized something impossible. He couldn't hear his own footsteps anymore. Leaves crunched beneath his boots. He could feel them, but no sound followed. He stopped, looked down, pressed his foot harder. Still nothing. A chill climbed his spine. He whispered, "Hello." His own voice sounded strangely distant, as though someone several feet away had spoken instead. The air smelled of wet stone, old wood, and smoke. Fresh smoke. Someone lived nearby. 20 minutes later, the forest ended. Elias froze. Before him lay an entire village. Not abandoned. Not ruined. Alive. Stone cottages with curved wooden roofs lined narrow streets. Lanterns burned beneath carved eaves. Thin streams of smoke drifted from chimneys. Water wheels turned beside crystal-clear canals. Children laughed somewhere beyond the houses. Yet, everything looked centuries old. Not preserved. Not reconstructed. Simply untouched by time. His heart pounded. This can't be real. He slowly lifted his camera. The screen flickered. Static danced across the display. Then, the image cleared. He zoomed toward the village. Nothing appeared. The camera showed an empty valley. No houses. No roads. No lanterns. Just grass. Elias lowered the camera. The village stood exactly where it had before. He looked through the screen again. Empty. Lowered it. Village. Raised it. Empty. A cold knot formed in his stomach. He wasn't documenting history anymore. History refused to be recorded. A wooden gate stood open. Above it hung a weathered sign. The symbols weren't English, nor Latin, nor anything Elias recognized. Yet, as his eyes rested upon them, the meaning appeared inside his mind as naturally as remembering his own name. Welcome home. He stepped backward instinctively. No! I'm just passing through. The sign creaked. The characters shifted. Now it read. Everyone says that. The wood hadn't moved. No magic glow. No dramatic transformation. He simply remembered different words. Elias rubbed his eyes. Sleep deprivation. Stress. Hallucination. There had to be an explanation. There always was. He walked through the gate. The village smelled wonderfully alive. Fresh bread, boiling herbs, with smoke, rain-soaked earth. Every house had intricate carvings of birds, wolves, moons, and spirals winding around the doorframes. None matched any historical culture he knew. An elderly woman swept leaves from her porch. She looked up, smiled warmly. "You're late." Elias blinked. "I'm sorry. We've been waiting. I think you've mistaken me for someone." "No." Her smile widened. "We never do." He laughed nervously. "I'm Elias." "We know." His laughter died instantly. "You know my name?" She simply continued sweeping, as though the conversation were finished. Further into the village, everyone greeted him, not with surprise, with familiarity. "Welcome back. You've grown. You finally returned. We wondered how long it would take." Every face carried gentle affection. No curiosity, no suspicion, only certainty, as if he truly belonged there. Elias asked dozens of questions. No one answered directly. Instead, they smiled, laughed softly, changed the subject, invited him for tea, offered fresh bread, asked whether the city was still noisy. One little girl tugged gently at his sleeve. She couldn't have been older than 8. "You shouldn't stay outside after sunset." "Why?" She glanced toward the forest. "They'll hear you." "Who?" Her smile disappeared. "The ones who remember." The words lingered long after she'd skipped away. The ones who remember. Remember what? At the village square stood an enormous tree unlike anything Elias had ever seen. Its trunk was nearly 40 feet wide. Silver bark shimmered beneath fading sunlight. Thousands of tiny glass wind chimes hung from its branches. Yet there was no wind. None of them moved. An old man sat beneath the tree carving wooden masks. His beard reached nearly to his waist. His eyes were completely white, blind, or so Elias thought. Without looking up, the old man spoke. "You took longer this time." Elias sighed. "Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true. I've never been here." "You have." "No, not this life." Silence. Elias stared. "What does that mean?" The old man finally looked toward him. Though his eyes were clouded, Elias had the unmistakable feeling of being examined completely. Body, mind, memory, soul. "You've forgotten again." "I'm leaving." "No." The old man smiled sadly. "The village hasn't decided that yet." Night arrived unnaturally fast. One moment, golden evening. The next, complete darkness. Every lantern ignited simultaneously. No one lit them. They simply awakened. Children hurried indoors. Doors locked. Windows closed. Conversation stopped. The entire village transformed within seconds. Only moments earlier it had felt welcoming. Now it felt afraid. A bell rang once. The same bell Elias had heard in the forest. Every villager bowed their heads. Nobody spoke. Then came another sound. Footsteps from beyond the gate. Slow, heavy, too heavy for any human. One step, another, closer, closer, closer. Elias instinctively turned toward the entrance. The old blind man grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "Do not look." "What is it?" "Someone looking for the person you used to be." "I don't understand." "You will." The footsteps stopped, right outside the village. Silence followed. Then 3 slow knocks echoed against the ancient wooden gate. Knock. A pause. Knock. A longer pause. Knock. Every lantern in the village flickered. The old man's grip tightened. His voice became barely a whisper. "It has found you again." And before Elias could ask what it was, the gate began to open by itself. The gate did not creak. It did not groan beneath age or strain. Instead, the ancient would move with the eerie smoothness of a door that had been opened the exact same way thousands of times before. Every villager lowered their eyes. No one dared breathe. The lanterns surrounding the square dimmed until their golden flames became pale blue. Elias stared despite the old man's warning. The darkness beyond the gate wasn't ordinary night. It was thicker, almost liquid. It swallowed the forest, the road, the mountains, everything that should have existed outside the village. Only darkness remained. Then a figure stepped forward. It wore a traveling cloak stitched from black fabric that reflected no light. Its boots touched the stone road without making a sound. Its face remained hidden beneath an impossibly deep hood. Even stranger, the darkness beneath the hood wasn't empty. It moved, like smoke drifting underwater. The figure stopped exactly 3 steps inside the gate. No farther. The old man whispered, "It still remembers the promise." Elias frowned. What promise? No answer came. The figure slowly lifted one pale hand. Its fingers were unnaturally long, almost skeletal. In its palm rested an old bronze compass. The glass covering its face was cracked. Its needle spun wildly before pointing directly at Elias. The figure spoke. Its voice sounded like many people speaking at once. Young, old, male, female, all layered together. Elias Harper. His heart skipped. Who are you? We have walked together before. I've never seen you. You have? No, you simply do not remember. The old man stepped between them. Leave. The hooded traveler tilted its head. He belongs to the road. He belongs here. For now. Those final 2 words chilled everyone. Even the old man, especially the old man. The traveler closed its fingers around the compass. Immediately the lantern flames returned to gold. The darkness outside the village retreated several feet. Without another word, the figure turned around, walked back through the gate, and disappeared. The gate closed by itself. Only after several long moments did anyone move. Children began crying. Women embraced one another. Several elderly villagers quietly lit sticks of incense beneath the silver tree. It was as though everyone had survived a disaster that Elias couldn't even understand. You should come. The old man rose from beneath the great tree. My house. Elias asked. The old man nodded. There are questions only the keeper may answer. The keeper? I've carried that title for 87 years. He smiled faintly. And one day, you will carry it after me. The keeper's home stood at the highest point of the village. Unlike every other building, it had no windows. Its walls were made from polished gray stone covered in symbols that shimmered whenever moonlight touched them. Inside, thousands of candles burned without melting. Books filled every wall. Not shelves, walls. Books had been stacked from floor to ceiling until the room resembled a library grown naturally over centuries. The smell of old paper mixed with cedar wood and dried herbs. In the center stood an enormous table carved from a single piece of black oak. Upon it rested dozens of maps. None resembled the modern world. Some showed continents that no longer existed. Others depicted islands floating above oceans. One map consisted entirely of circles connected by winding roads. The keeper noticed Elias staring. These are not places. What are they? Memories. Elias laughed uncertainly. You can't draw memories. You can. The keeper placed one wrinkled hand upon a faded map. They simply refused to stay still. To Elias's astonishment, the roads began moving, like veins beneath skin. Entire villages shifted across the parchment. Mountains folded into valleys. Rivers changed direction. Nothing remained fixed. You said I've been here before. Yes, I haven't. In this lifetime. There it is again. The keeper sighed. I hoped your memory would return more gently. I'm not reincarnated. No. What? You are something rarer. The old man opened a wooden chest beneath the table. Inside lay hundreds of journals. Each bore the same title, Elias, every single one. Some appeared centuries old. Others looked almost new. One had been written on animal skin, another on yellow parchment. One was bound with leather, so worn it crumbled when touched. The keeper carefully selected the oldest. Its pages were brittle. The ink had faded brown. He opened to the first page. At the bottom, instead of a signature, there was a symbol, a spiral. Without thinking, Elias reached into his jacket pocket. His fingers brushed something unfamiliar. He pulled it out. A small silver pendant. A spiral. Exactly the same design. He stared. I've never seen this. It has always been yours. How did it get into my pocket? You carried it through every crossing. What crossing? The keeper looked directly into his eyes. The one between lives. Elias stood abruptly. This is impossible. It should be. You expect me to believe I've lived multiple lives? No. I expect you to remember. I'm leaving. You cannot. I walked in. You were invited. So, no one leaves unless the village says goodbye. The words echoed through the silent room. For the first time since arriving, Elias felt genuine fear. Not fear of ghosts. Not fear of monsters. Fear of being trapped. A knock interrupted them. 3 soft taps. The keeper's expression darkened. Already, he opened the door. The little girl Elias had met earlier stood outside. She looked terrified. They found another one. The keeper closed his eyes. Where? The river. Minutes later, half the village had gathered beside a narrow stream running behind the silver tree. Moonlight reflected across perfectly still water. Villagers stood in complete silence. No one approached the bank. Elias pushed gently through the crowd, then froze. A body floated face down in the river. The clothes looked modern. Blue jeans, hiking boots, gray waterproof jacket. Someone else had wandered here. The keeper nodded toward Elias. Help us. Together they pulled the stranger onto shore. A young man, perhaps 30. His skin was ice cold. Yet there was no sign of drowning. No injuries. No blood. His face looked peaceful, as though asleep. Then Elias noticed something. The man's backpack. He recognized the logo instantly. It belonged to an outdoor adventure company he'd partnered with 2 years earlier. His pulse quickened. Hands shaking, he searched the pockets. Inside was a wallet, driver's license, camera batteries, a folded photograph. Elias unfolded it. His blood turned to ice. The photograph showed himself standing beside this same young man, both smiling, arms around each other's shoulders. Behind them, the exact village they were standing in now. On the back, written in fading ink, were 6 simple words. Don't let me forget again. Elias whispered, I've never met this man. The keeper answered quietly, You always say that. At that exact moment, the dead man's eyes opened, not slowly, not naturally, instantly. They locked onto Elias. His lips moved, barely audible, yet everyone heard the words. You came back too late. Then the body turned to dust. The river carried the ashes away. No one spoke, because every villager knew something Elias was only beginning to understand. Someone else had escaped this village once before, and somehow they had returned only to die. Far above the rooftops, the great silver tree began to tremble for the very first time. One single glass wind chime rang into the night, then another, then hundreds. A sound unlike music echoed across the ancient village, as if the tree itself had awakened and recognized Elias. The sound of the wind chime spread to the village like a ripple across still water. Hundreds, then thousands. Tiny notes drifted into the night, weaving together into a melody so ancient it felt older than language itself. No wind stirred the branches, yet every crystal chime danced. The villagers slowly fell to their knees. Some whispered prayers. Others covered their ears. A few elderly women quietly wept. Elias stood frozen beside the river, the photograph still clutched tightly in his hand. The ashes of the stranger had vanished into the current as though they had never existed. Only the memory remained. And somehow, that felt far more dangerous. The tree has awakened. The keeper's voice carried no excitement, only dread. What does that mean? Elias asked. The old man looked toward the towering silver trunk in the center of the village. It remembers. It remembers what? You. The great tree stood nearly 200 feet tall. By daylight, Elias had thought it beautiful. Now, beneath the moonlight, it seemed impossibly alive. Its silver bark pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat beneath skin. Tiny veins of pale blue light flowed through its trunk. The roots spread beneath the village in every direction, lifting ancient stones that had rested there for centuries. Its leaves shimmered like fragments of polished glass. Every time one leaf detached from a branch, it floated upward instead of falling, higher, higher, until it disappeared into the stars. No one spoke as Elias followed the keeper toward the tree. The villagers moved aside without a word. Children hid behind their parents. The little girl who had warned him earlier watched silently, her eyes filled not with fear, but sorrow, as though she already knew how the story would end. When Elias reached the trunk, he noticed something he had somehow missed before. Names. Thousands of names. They were carved into the silver bark. Some looked fresh. Others had nearly disappeared beneath centuries of growth. Different languages. Different alphabets. Different eras. He recognized Roman lettering, ancient Greek, Arabic, Chinese, runes he had only seen in history books. Some symbols belonged to civilizations that historians believed had vanished long before written records. Every name had one thing in common, a date, but the dates made no sense. Some stretched back over 3,000 years. Others belonged to years that had not yet happened. Elias frowned. How can there be future dates? The keeper answered quietly, because the tree does not measure time the way we do. Something caught Elias's eye, near the center of the trunk, freshly carved, almost glowing. Elias. Below it, no date, just an empty line. His breath caught. Who carved this? No one. The keeper gently touched the bark. The tree writes the names itself. Elias laughed uneasily. This has to be some elaborate trick. The keeper simply stepped aside. Touch your name. I don't. Touch it. Against every instinct, he reached out. The silver bark felt warm, almost human. The instant his fingertips brushed the carved letters, the village disappeared. He stood in sunlight, bright, warm, golden. Children ran laughing through the square. The silver tree was much smaller. The cottages looked newer. Fresh paint covered the doors. Flowers bloomed everywhere. Nothing felt haunted. Nothing felt forgotten. People smiled as they passed. Then a young man approached. He wore simple linen clothes and carried a wooden bucket. He couldn't have been older than 25. His dark hair was tied behind his neck. A silver spiral pendant rested against his chest. The same pendant Elias carried now. The stranger looked directly at him and smiled, not at the invisible observer. At him. You're late. Elias's heart stopped. The young man had his face, not merely similar, identical, every scar, every feature, every expression. It was him, or someone who looked exactly like him. The vision continued. The younger Elias laughed. You always say that. An older version of the keeper emerged from one of the houses. Though younger than before, the blind eyes were unmistakable. He handed the young Elias a wooden box. It is almost time. Young Elias nodded solemnly. I know. No. The keeper smiled sadly. You remember, that makes it harder. What happens if I refuse? The road chooses someone else. And the village? It disappears. Young Elias closed his eyes. I promise. You did. The vision shifted violently. The bright summer sky darkened. The village bells rang frantically. Villagers ran through the streets. Children screamed. Doors slammed shut. The silver tree shook violently. Darkness poured through the forest like a tidal wave. The hooded traveler stepped through the gate. Not alone. Behind it, hundreds of shadow-like figures emerged from the woods. Tall, featureless, their bodies constantly shifting. They moved without walking, gliding silently over the ground. Everywhere they passed, flowers withered, stone cracked, lanterns extinguished. The air itself seemed to decay. Young Elias drew a sword unlike anything the modern Elias had ever seen. Its blade shone like polished moonlight. Spirals glowed along its length. The keeper shouted, Seal the road. Young Elias looked back at the villagers, at frightened children, at families embracing one another, at the silver tree. Then he smiled. a smile filled with unbearable sadness. "I'll find my way back." He stepped toward the gate. Alone, the vision shattered. Elias staggered backward, collapsing onto the cold stone beneath the tree. His breathing became ragged. His heart hammered painfully against his ribs. The village slowly returned around him. The keeper knelt beside him. "What did you see?" "Myself." The old man's shoulders slumped. "So, you begun remembering." "It wasn't me. It was... I've never lived here." "You've lived here longer than anyone." Elias looked at the spiral pendant in his trembling hand. It no longer felt unfamiliar. Some tiny part of his mind recognized its weight, its texture, its warmth, as though he had held it 1,000 times before. "Tell me the truth." The keeper remained silent. "The whole truth." After a long pause, the old man nodded. "There is no ancient village." Elias blinked. "What?" "This place has existed under many names." "Then what is it?" The keeper looked toward the gate beyond the square. "It is the last door." "The last door to where?" "To the world." Elias frowned. "I don't understand." "The roads between worlds are older than mountains. The villages built upon those roads protect humanity." "Protect us from what?" The keeper's cloudy eyes turned toward the dark forest. "Those who have forgotten how to die." Silence settled over them. Even the wind chimes stopped ringing. "The traveler you saw tonight," the keeper continued, "is not your enemy." "It isn't?" "No." "Then who are those shadows?" For the first time, the old man hesitated. His voice became almost a whisper. "We do not speak their true name." "Why?" "Because names allow them to remember where you are." A loud crack echoed across the village. Everyone looked up. One enormous branch of the silver tree had split open. Instead of wood, the inside glowed with brilliant white light. From the opening, a single object slowly emerged. Floating, turning gently in the air, it drifted toward Elias. The villagers gasped. The keeper bowed deeply. "It has chosen." The object settled into Elias's waiting hands. An old leather journal. Its cover was worn smooth by centuries of use. Embossed across the front, in faded silver letters, were 2 words. "First Life." Elias slowly opened the cover. The first page contained only 1 sentence, written in his own unmistakable handwriting. "If you are reading this, then I have forgotten everything." Again, before he could turn the page, a scream echoed from the northern watchtower. It was sharp, terrified, cut off almost instantly. Then the village bell rang once, twice, 3 times. The keeper's face turned deathly pale. "No." Elias looked toward him. "What is it?" The old man whispered the words every villager dreaded. They crossed a river, and beyond the rooftops, shapes began moving between the houses, not outside the village. Inside it, the bell rang a 4th time. It had never rung a 4th time. The sound tore through the village with such force that every window shattered simultaneously. Glass exploded onto the stone streets. Children screamed. Dogs howled. Even the silver tree trembled. For one impossible heartbeat, the moon itself flickered. Then darkness swallowed half the village. There inside, someone whispered. The word spread like a sickness. They're inside. They cross a river. They cross a river. Panic erupted. Villagers rushed toward their homes. Doors slammed. Lanterns were extinguished. Parents gathered frightened children into their arms. The peaceful village Elias had entered only hours earlier vanished, replaced by disciplined chaos. No one ran blindly. Everyone seemed to know exactly what to do. Everyone except Elias. The keeper grabbed his shoulder. "Listen carefully." "I'm listening." "No matter what you hear." "Okay." "No matter whose voice calls your name." Elias frowned. "Don't answer." "Why?" The keeper's expression hardened. "Because it won't be me." A deep horn echoed from the western wall. Then another from the east. A third answered from the south. The village guards had taken their positions. Elias hadn't noticed them before. Now they emerged from hidden passageways beneath the houses. Men and women alike. dressed in weathered leather armor stitched with silver thread. Each carried an unusual weapon. Not swords, not spears. Their blades curved like crescent moons, etched with the same spiral symbols Elias had seen throughout the village. Their faces held no fear, only grim determination, as though this battle had been fought countless times before. Perhaps it had. A young woman approached the keeper. Her black hair was braided tightly behind her head. A scar ran from her left eyebrow to the corner of her jaw. She couldn't have been older than 30. The north gate has fallen. The keeper closed his eyes. How many? We don't know. The bells. They stopped answering. She looked at Elias. So, he's finally back. There was no relief in her voice, only exhaustion. I was beginning to think you'd never remember us. Elias shook his head. I don't even know who you are. A faint smile crossed her face. I know. You always say that. My name is Mira. She extended her hand. For reasons Elias couldn't explain, he already knew it. Not because she had introduced herself, because hearing her name stirred something buried deep inside him, a memory just beyond reach. A campfire, snow, laughter, someone promising. Next time, don't leave without saying goodbye. The image vanished before he could grasp it. Mira noticed a change in his expression. You remembered something. No, you did. It was nothing. She looked away. No memory is ever nothing. The first scream came from the northern street, then another, then silence. The silence frightened Elias more. A boy no older than 15 stumbled into the square. His clothes were soaked in blood. He collapsed before reaching the tree. His voice trembled violently. Don't kill people. The keeper hurried toward him. What happened? The boy looked up. His eyes were wide with horror. They erased him. What do you mean? My father... He was standing beside me. And then... The boy began sobbing uncontrollably. I can't remember his face. The square fell silent. My mother can't remember him either. The keeper lowered his head. They begun feeding. Elias stared. What does that mean? The keeper answered quietly. They don't eat flesh. They don't drink blood. They consume memory. No. Elias whispered. That's impossible. Everything is impossible here. The injured boy clutched his own head desperately. I know I had a father. I remember loving him. But I don't remember his voice. I don't remember his name. I don't remember. His words faded. Confusion replaced terror. He blinked several times, then looked around the square. Why am I crying? The keeper looked away. There was nothing anyone could do. A cold breeze swept through the village. For the first time since Elias arrived, the wind carried whispers. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Voices overlapping one another. Some laughed. Some cried. Some begged for help. Some called his name. Elias. The voice sounded exactly like his mother. He froze. His mother had died 8 years ago. The whisper came again. Elias. Closer this time. I know you're there. His chest tightened. He turned instinctively toward the voice. The keeper struck him across the face. The slap echoed through the square. What are you doing? Elias shouted. I told you. The keeper's voice shook. They've learned her voice. The whisper changed instantly. Now it sounded like his younger sister. Eli. Then his best friend. Then his father. Then his own voice. Elias. We're waiting. The whispers came from every direction. Every house. Every alley. Every rooftop. Every shadow. Mira drew on the curved blades. The silver symbols carved into it ignited with pale light. Close your eyes. What? Now? Without another word, she pressed the glowing blade against the stone beneath her feet. The symbols carved throughout the village burst into brilliant silver. Every doorway, every rooftop, every street. Thousands of spirals lit up simultaneously, forming an enormous glowing pattern that stretched across the entire village. The whisper stopped. Instantly. They can't cross blessed stone. Mira breathed heavily. But the protection won't last. How long? She looked toward the sky. Until midnight. Elias frowned. What happens at midnight? Neither she nor the keeper answered. Instead, the keeper handed Elias the leather journal. Read. Now. Especially now. Hands trembling, Elias opened to the second page. The handwriting matched his own perfectly. The ink had faded with unimaginable age. It read, Journal, First Life. I have failed. If these words reach me again, then history has repeated itself. You will think this village is ancient. It is not. You will think you have wandered here by accident. You did not. You chose this road long, before your current life began. The traveler in black is not hunting you. He is protecting you. The shadows are. Never trust your memories after sunset. They can rewrite them. If you begin remembering things that never happened, burn these pages. If you stop remembering who you are, burn yourself before dawn. Elias stared at the final sentence. His blood ran cold. What kind of person writes this? The keeper answered softly. You. Before Elias could ask another question, the journal began turning its own pages. Faster, faster, faster. The ink across every page shifted like living water. Words vanished. New ones appeared. Then, every page stopped on the same message, written in fresh black ink that hadn't existed seconds earlier. They are reading this with you. A freezing gust swept through the square. Every candle inside the keeper's house went out. Every lantern dimmed. The silver tree groaned. Then a voice echoed from somewhere within the darkness. Calm, patient, almost kind. Elias, you've forgotten one very important thing. He slowly looked toward the empty street. No one stood there, yet the voice continued. We were never trying to get into the village. A long silence followed. Then, we've always lived here. At that exact moment, Myra's face turned deathly white. She stared not into the darkness, but at the villagers surrounding them. One by one, the smiling faces of people Elias had spoken to since arriving began to change. Their expressions froze. Their eyes became completely black. And, with impossible synchronization, every one of them smiled. Every smile appeared at the exact same moment. Not gradually, not naturally, as if an invisible hand had reached into dozens of minds and pulled the same expression across every face. The square fell silent. Even the children stopped crying. The villagers who had smiled at Elias only hours before now stood perfectly still. Their eyes were completely black. Not pupils, not shadows. Black, endless, like looking into a tunnel, without an end. Mira slowly stepped in front of Elias. Her glowing blade rose into a defensive stance. The keeper whispered, Don't attack. Elias stared at him. What? If you attack the wrong one, you'll kill someone innocent. One of the smiling villagers tilted his head. It was the baker who had offered Elias warm bread that afternoon. His flour-covered apron was still tied around his waist. His smile widened, far too wide, until the corners of his mouth split. Yet no blood appeared, only darkness. Then he spoke. Elias. His voice sounded exactly as it had before. Friendly, gentle. We save your favorite loaf. Another voice answered, the elderly woman who had greeted him at the entrance. We've been waiting. Another, the little girl. You promised you'd come back. Another, a young mother holding her infant. You left us. Then another, and another. Soon, dozens of voices overlapped, not shouting, simply speaking, as if continuing conversations that Elias had forgotten long ago. The keeper took one slow step forward. What do you want? Every smiling villager answered together. The same thing we've always wanted. And what is that? You. The silver tree shuddered violently. Its glowing branches bent toward the square. Thousands of glass chimes rang at once. The sound rippled through the village like a command. Instantly, half of the smiling villagers collapsed to their knees. The others didn't move. Mira narrowed her eyes. They've only taken some of them. The keeper nodded. They're choosing carefully. Elias struggled to understand. Taken? The shadows can't always enter by force. They need permission. I didn't give anyone permission. You don't have to. The keeper looked around the square. They borrow forgotten memories. The words made no sense, until Elias noticed something impossible. The villagers who remained standing were people he barely remembered meeting. The ones who had fallen to their knees were the people whose faces he could recall clearly. The little girl, the baker, the old woman. The memories were changing. Someone or something was deciding which people he would remember. A sudden headache struck him. White-hot pain exploded behind his eyes. He stumbled backward. The journal slipped from his hands. As it hit the ground, the pages burst open. Dozens of loose sheets scattered across the square. The wind carried them through the air. Each page contained sketches, drawings, maps, notes, names, and portraits. One sheet landed at Elias's feet. It showed a charcoal drawing of a young woman. Beneath it was written, Mira, third crossing. Another page drifted down. Keeper Aster, seventh guardian. Another, Silver Tree, never let it burn. Then, one final page landed upside down. Slowly, Elias turned it over. His breath caught. It was a portrait of the hooded traveler. The face beneath the hood had been carefully drawn. Strong jaw, short dark hair, kind eyes, a tired smile. The face belonged to Elias. No. His voice cracked. No. The keeper closed his eyes. You found him. That's me. It was... What does that mean? The old man pointed toward the portrait. Read the note. Below the drawing, written in faded ink, were 6 words. The last traveler never came home. Before Elias could speak, a loud crack echoed across the square. One of the smiling villagers stepped forward. It was the elderly woman. She sighed softly, almost sadly. We didn't want you to remember this way. Her body folded, bones bent at impossible angles. Her arms stretched until her fingertips touched the ground. Her spine twisted with a series of sickening pops. Her skin rippled. Then it peeled away. Not torn, not ripped. It simply slipped from her body like old clothing. What stood beneath wasn't human. It was tall, at least 9 feet high. Its limbs were impossibly thin. Its skin resembled polished obsidian, reflecting the lantern light like black glass. Its face had no nose, no ears, only a smooth surface split by a single vertical mouth lined with tiny silver teeth. Where its eyes should have been, countless tiny lights flickered beneath translucent skin, like stars trapped inside darkness. The creature looked at Elias, not with hatred, with recognition. It spoke. Its voice was gentle. We finally found you. One by one, the remaining smiling villagers began changing. The transformations happened differently for each of them. Some melted into pools of black mist before rising again. Others unfolded into towering, elegant nightmares with too many joints. A few simply became shadows wearing human outlines. Yet every one of them looked at Elias with the same expression. Relief, not hunger, not anger. Relief, as though a centuries-long search had finally ended. Mira shouted, formed a circle. The village guards rushed into position around the silver tree. Their glowing blades crossed. Symbols carved into the ground blazed brighter than ever. The air filled with silver light. The creatures stopped advancing. One smiled. If circles still worked. It tilted its head. You wouldn't have forgotten us. The keeper raised his wooden staff. For the first time, Elias noticed the top of the staff held a crystal identical to the chimes hanging from the silver tree. The old man struck the stone once. A wave of brilliant light exploded outward. The creatures staggered. Their bodies flickered like reflections on disturbed water. Several retreated into the shadows. But not all. One remained standing, the tallest among them, nearly 12 feet high. Its smooth face slowly split open, not into a mouth, into hundreds of tiny eyes. Each eye blinked independently. Every iris reflected a different memory. A child laughing, a burning city, a wedding, a battlefield, an old man dying peacefully, a newborn opening its eyes. Thousands of lives, thousands of memories. Watching him, Elias couldn't look away. One memory caught his attention: a snowy mountain, a younger version of himself standing beside the hooded traveler. Neither was wearing the black cloak. They were laughing. Brothers, not by blood, by choice. The image vanished. The creature spoke. "Do you remember my name?" Elias opened his mouth. A single word escaped before he could stop it. "Kalen." The entire village froze. The creature closed all of its eyes. For the first time, it smiled, not with menace, with heartbreak. "You remembered." The keeper's face lost all color. Mira whispered, "No." Elias looked between them. "What?" The keeper's voice trembled. "You should never have remembered that name." "Why?" "Because names are doors." The creature, Kalen, took one step forward. The protective circle did not stop him. Silver light passed through his body like mist. The guard stared in disbelief. "It shouldn't be possible." Mira whispered. Kalen's countless eyes remained fixed on Elias. "You sealed the road. You abandoned us. You promised you would return." His voice softened. "And you did." A long silence followed. Then Kalen asked a question that made Elias's heart pound harder than ever before. "When you sealed the road, why did you lock us outside?" Before Elias could answer, the journal lying at his feet burst into white flames. The fire spread across every page without consuming the paper. New words appeared in blazing silver ink. Only one sentence, one warning, one truth. "Do not believe the first memory you recover." The flames suddenly turned black, and every creature in the square looked up toward the silver tree at the exact same moment. Something enormous was moving inside its glowing trunk. The sound came first. Not a roar, not a growl, a heartbeat. Thump. The ground vibrated. Loose stones danced across the village square. The silver tree glowed brighter, veins of pale light racing beneath its bark like rivers of liquid moonlight. Then came another beat. Thump. The branches bent low, their crystal leaves chiming wildly without a breath of wind. Every creature, both human and shadow, fell silent. Even Kalen lowered his head. It wasn't fear. It was reverence. The keeper whispered, "It has awakened completely." Elias looked toward the tree. "What is it?" The old man answered with a voice that sounded very, very tired. "Not what? Who?" The trunk split open, not violently, slowly, like an ancient door that had waited centuries for the right hand to knock. White light poured through the widening crack, so brilliant that Elias had to shield his eyes. The heartbeat grew louder, closer, until he realized something impossible. The sound wasn't coming from the tree anymore. It was coming from beneath it. The roots began to move. Massive silver roots, thicker than castle walls, slid aside with a deep grinding rumble. A staircase appeared beneath the trunk. It spiraled downward into darkness. Cold air drifted upward. It carried the scent of rain, old parchment, and oceans that had vanished long before humanity learned to write. No one moved. No one spoke. Then a voice echoed from the depths. It was calm, ancient, neither male nor female. "Elias." The name rolled through the air like distant thunder. "Come home." The keeper gripped Elias's arm. "Don't go." Kalen took one step forward. "You must." Mira stood between them. "No one enters the heart." Kalen looked at her sadly. "Not no one." He turned back to Elias. "Only the builder." Builder. The word struck Elias like lightning. A memory flashed. Not complete. Only fragments. Hands placing glowing stones into an endless road. A silver hammer. Mountains still molten beneath a crimson sky. People who weren't human, helping him build bridges made of light. Then, darkness. The vision disappeared. "I know that word." Elias whispered. The keeper's face tightened. "Of course you do. You gave yourself that title." "What is the builder?" The keeper hesitated. Then, for the first time since Elias had arrived, he answered without hiding anything. "The villages are not natural. They were built." "By whom?" "You." Silence. Even the heartbeat seemed to pause. Elias laughed. It wasn't amusement. It was disbelief trying desperately to survive. No, you've mistaken me for someone else. I always hope I have. The keeper looked into his eyes. I never do. Kalen stepped closer. The silver barrier shimmered, but did not stop him. You created every crossroad village. You built the roads between worlds. You taught us how to protect them. And then, his countless eyes dimmed. You erased yourself. Why? Elias asked. No one answered. Not immediately. Then Mira spoke. Because you were dying. The words hung in the air. Dying? I don't understand. You weren't human. She swallowed. Not entirely. The heartbeat echoed again. Thump. The staircase beneath the tree glowed. Ancient symbols lit along every step, one by one, leading into the darkness below. The journal in Elias's hands suddenly opened by itself. New words appeared across a blank page. Not ink. Light. Memory fragment 17. If I ever reach this page, then I have forgotten why I chose this. Do not let anyone tell you they are innocent. Not the keeper. Not Kalen. Not even me. Every version of us lies. Because every version remembers a different truth. The glowing words faded, replacing themselves with another sentence. The heart knows which memory is real. The page turned. Another message. If the heart opens, someone must stay behind. The journal snapped shut. Elias looked from the keeper to Mira to Kalen. 3 people, 3 stories, 3 different truths. Someone was lying. Maybe all of them. A low rumble rolled beneath the village. The ground shook violently. One of the outer houses collapsed into dust. Villagers screamed. Outside the walls, the forest had begun changing. Trees twisted into impossible shapes. The sky rippled like disturbed water. Stars disappeared one after another, as though something enormous were swallowing the night itself. The road is breaking. The keeper whispered. Myra's face turned pale. So soon, he nodded. We're out of time. Kalen turned toward the forest. They've noticed. Who? Elias asked. For the first time, Kalen looked afraid. Not of the village, not of the keeper, not of the heart. Something beyond all of them. They're coming. A distant sound echoed across the mountains. It resembled footsteps, but each step was miles apart. The earth trembled every time one landed. Boom. Silence. Several seconds later. Boom. The clouds cracked. Far beyond the forest, something unimaginably large moved beneath the horizon. Only its silhouette was visible. It was taller than mountains. Its head disappeared into clouds. Its arms hung so long they brushed entire forest aside as it walked. And it wasn't alone. Another silhouette appeared. Then another. Then dozens. Giants. Walking toward the village. Elias could barely breathe. What? What are those? The keeper didn't answer. Instead, he slowly knelt, not in despair. In respect. Kalen did the same. So did Mira. So did every villager. Even the shadow creatures bowed. No one spoke. No one dared. Finally, the keeper whispered names so quietly Elias almost didn't hear it. The Watchers. The moment the name left his lips, every giant on the horizon stopped walking. Slowly, very slowly, one of them turned its head. Though it stood many miles away, Elias felt its gaze fall directly upon him. His chest tightened. His heartbeat stopped. The giant had no eyes, no mouth, no face, only a smooth white surface beneath a crown of living stone. Yet, somehow, it was smiling. Inside Elias's mind, a voice older than the stars whispered a single sentence. Builder, your time is over. The spiral pendant around Elias's neck suddenly cracked down the center. A brilliant beam of silver light shot into the sky. The clouds split apart, and hidden above them, far above the moon, an impossibly vast city of floating stone, and light became visible for the very first time. No one in the village looked surprised. Only Elias, because deep inside, he realized he had been there before, and whatever waited in that city had been searching for him since the beginning of time. The beam of silver light pierced the heavens like a spear. Clouds tore apart in widening circles. The stars nearest the beam slowly disappeared. Not because they had gone out, but because something unimaginably vast drifted between them and the earth. The floating city. It stretched farther than Elias could see. Its towers rose like mountains carved from white crystal. Bridges of glowing stone connected structures suspended in open air. Waterfalls poured from its edges. Yet instead of falling toward the earth, they dissolved into ribbons of light halfway down before flowing back upward again. Thousands of golden lights moved through its streets. Some were people. Some were not. The entire village watched in silence. Children who had never seen the outside world stared upward with tears in their eyes. The oldest villagers bowed so deeply that their foreheads touched the cold stone ground. Mira whispered, "I never thought I'd see it again." Elias turned toward her. "You've been there?" She nodded slowly. "Once." "What was it called?" She looked up at the impossible city. "I don't know. The name was erased." The keeper spoke quietly. "No, it was hidden." The air grew colder. Snow began falling from a cloudless sky. Tiny white flakes drifted around the silver tree. But they weren't snow. Each crystal contained moving images. A little boy chasing butterflies. An old woman reading beside a fire. A soldier embracing his daughter before marching away. A young couple dancing beneath lanterns. Every flake held someone's memory. Elias reached out. One landed gently in his palm. The image inside showed a child laughing as his father lifted him onto his shoulders. Then the memory dissolved into silver dust. The keeper noticed. "The road is shedding." "What does that mean?" "It means reality is forgetting itself." Another heartbeat shook the village. Thump. This time the staircase beneath the tree glowed brighter. The light no longer stopped at the entrance. It climbed upward, surrounding Elias in a spiral of shimmering symbols. They floated around him like ancient fireflies. As each symbol passed before his eyes, he understood its meaning instinctively. Home, promise, gate, memory, return. Then, one symbol he couldn't understand. It pulsed brighter than all the others. Kalen saw it. His expression changed instantly. "No!" The keeper followed his gaze. His face drained of color. "It chose that one?" Mira whispered, "That's impossible." "What?" Elias demanded. "What is it?" The keeper answered reluctantly. "The mark of the first builder." Silence settled once more. Then Elias laughed bitterly. "A few hours ago I was filming abandoned churches. Now you're telling me I built worlds." "No," the keeper corrected him gently. "You built roads. The worlds already existed." Before Elias could ask another question, a loud cry echoed from the eastern rooftops. A young guard pointed toward the sky. "They're coming!" Everyone looked upward. At first, Elias saw only birds. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. They circled high above the village in perfect silence. Then one folded its wings. It fell, not like a bird, like a spear, straight toward the square. Just before striking the ground, its body unfolded. Feathers became strips of black cloth. Wings became long arms. Its head twisted completely around. It landed without making a sound. Standing nearly 10 feet tall, another descended. Then another. Within seconds, dozens surrounded the village, not attacking, watching. Kalen sighed. They found the signal. "What are they?" Elias asked. "The messengers." One of the creatures stepped forward. Its face resembled polished porcelain, featureless except for a single crack running from forehead to chin. When it spoke, the crack widened slightly. "The Watchers have awakened." No one replied. "The builder has been located." Still no answer. "The sentence shall now continue." Elias frowned. Sentence. The messenger slowly turned toward him. "You fled before it was complete. I don't even know who you are." "You knew us." "I don't." "You chose not to." The creature raised one hand. The air in front of it rippled, like the surface of still water. A window opened in empty space. Inside, Elias saw another village, burning, people running, the silver tree collapsing. Above it floated the same city now hanging over the earth. Its towers were breaking apart. One by one, You're a 7 failure. The messenger said calmly. The image changed. Another village. Frozen beneath endless snow. No survivors. You're a 12th. Another. A city swallowed by the sea. You're 19th. Another. A desert where nothing remained except one silver tree, surrounded by bones. You're 26. The images continued changing faster and faster. Different ages, different civilizations, different continents. Always the same ending. Every village destroyed. Every road collapsing. Every time, someone who looked exactly like Elias stood at the center. His knees weakened. How many times? His voice barely emerged. Has this happened? The messenger answered without emotion. 49. No one in the village looked surprised, only saddened. The keeper closed his eyes. I hope this crossing will be the last. The messenger continued. This is the 50th. The number echoed inside Elias's mind. 50. 50 lives. 50 villages. 50 failures. No, the journal had warned him. Do not believe the first memory you recover. Could these visions be lies? As if hearing his thoughts, Kalen spoke quietly. They're showing you facts, not truth. The messenger turned toward him. There is no difference. There is every difference. The two ancient beings stared at one another, not with hatred, with profound disappointment, like old friends standing on opposite sides of a decision neither wanted to make. Suddenly, the spiral pendant around Elias's neck began glowing again. The crack widened. A tiny object fell from inside it. It landed softly in his hand. A key, no larger than his thumb, made from silver that shimmered like flowing water. Across its handle was engraved a single symbol, the same symbol he hadn't been able to understand moments earlier, the mark of the first builder. The keeper inhaled sharply. I thought it was lost. Kalen smiled faintly. It wasn't lost. It was hidden. From whom? Kalen looked directly into Elias's eyes. From you. The key grew warm, almost hot. Without warning, it floated from Elias's palm, turned toward the staircase beneath the silver tree, and began descending, slowly, as if inviting him to follow. At the same time, the floating city above the clouds rang with hundreds of deep bronze bells. The sound rolled across the world. Far beyond the mountains, the colossal watchers resumed walking. Each step shook the earth. Closer, closer, closer. The messenger bowed its head. The heart has opened. Then it looked at Elias one final time. You have one chance left to remember why you chose to forget. The key disappeared into the darkness below. From somewhere deep beneath the tree, a child's voice echoed upward. Soft, lonely, almost pleading. Elias, I've been waiting for you for 10,000 years. The voice was unmistakably familiar, not because he had heard it before, but because it was his own, at the age of 7. As if hearing his thoughts, Kalen spoke quietly. They're showing you facts, not truth. The messenger turned toward him. There is no difference. There is every difference. The two ancient beings stared at one another, not with hatred, with profound disappointment, like old friends standing on opposite sides of a decision neither wanted to make. Suddenly, the spiral pendant around Elias's neck began glowing again. The crack widened. A tiny object fell from inside it. It landed softly in his hand. A key, no larger than his thumb, made from silver that shimmered like flowing water. Across its handle was engraved a single symbol, the same symbol he hadn't been able to understand moments earlier, the mark of the first builder. The keeper inhaled sharply. I thought it was lost. Kalen smiled faintly. It wasn't lost. It was hidden. From whom? Kalen looked directly into Elias's eyes. From you. The key grew warm, almost hot. Without warning, it floated from Elias's palm, turned toward the staircase beneath the silver tree, and began descending, slowly, as if inviting him to follow. At the same time, the floating city above the clouds rang with hundreds of deep bronze bells. The sound rolled across the world. Far beyond the mountains, the colossal watchers resumed walking. Each step shook the earth. Closer, Closer, closer. The messenger bowed its head. The heart has opened. Then it looked at Elias one final time. You have one chance left to remember why you chose to forget. The key disappeared into the darkness below. From somewhere deep beneath the tree, a child's voice echoed upward. Soft, lonely, almost pleading. Elias, I've been waiting for you for 10,000 years. The voice was unmistakably familiar, not because he had heard it before, but because it was his own. At the age of 7, one of the glowing memory threads snapped. Its light vanished forever. Far above, a distant bell rang. Then another, then silence. The boy's smile disappeared. They're here. Who? The Watchers. The underground chamber began cracking. Tiny fractures spread across the reflective floor. Darkness seeped upward through them. Not shadow, something older, something that made even the memories retreat. The child looked toward the growing cracks with genuine fear. They've reached the heart. Elias turned toward the staircase. I have to help them. You can't. Why? Because the child hesitated. They're not coming for the village. A thunderous impact shook the chamber. The ceiling cracked. Silver roots snapped like breaking glass. Above them, the muffled sound of screaming echoed through the stone. The child looked directly into Elias's eyes. They're coming for me. At that exact moment, one of the massive roots behind the boy split open. A gigantic white hand emerged from the darkness beyond. Not flesh, not stone, something in between. Its fingers were longer than tree trunks. Each bore countless engraved eyes. The hand reached silently toward the child, and the child did not run. He simply whispered, They found where you hid me. The enormous white hand stopped only inches from the child. Its fingers hovered in absolute stillness. Each finger was carved with hundreds of closed eyes. One by one, the eyes opened, not to look at the child, to look at Elias. Thousands of pupils turned toward him simultaneously. The chamber became impossibly quiet. Then every eye blinked together. A voice entered his mind, not spoken, remembered. Return what was hidden. The little boy stepped backward. No, the word was barely louder than a whisper. Yet the giant hand paused. Almost respectfully, Elias moved instinctively between the child and the hand. I don't know what's happening. The voice returned. Older than mountains. Older than stars. You chose to forget. The sentence remains unfinished. I don't remember any sentence. That was your design. The hand slowly withdrew, not in defeat, in patience, as though it knew time would eventually deliver what force could not. The cracks in the floor sealed themselves. The underground chamber fell silent once more. Only the child's uneven breathing remained. They can't take me, the boy whispered, not while you still exist. Elias looked down. What are you? The child smiled faintly. The last true memory. The glowing thread surrounding the great root dimmed. Millions of tiny lights flickered. Thousands vanished. Entire lifetimes disappeared forever. The child reached toward one fading thread. Too late. It dissolved into silver dust. He lowered his hand. Another world forgot. What do you mean? The child pointed toward the endless web of glowing memories. Each thread isn't a person. It's a road. Elias stared. I thought these were memories. They are. The road remembers every world connected to it. He looked closer. Inside one glowing thread, he saw a city built beneath the ocean. Inside another, a civilization living among floating islands. Another showed forests growing beneath purple skies. Every thread contained an entire reality. Millions of them, connected, balanced, protected, or once protected. You built all this? The child shook his head. No, I learned how to connect it. Someone else built the first road. Who? For the first time, the child hesitated. Then he quietly answered, I don't know. The admission surprised Elias. I thought you remembered everything. I remember everything about you. He looked toward the endless darkness beyond the chamber, but not what came before. A low rumble echoed overhead. The ceiling trembled. Tiny fragments of glowing crystal rained onto the floor. The child sighed. They've started. Started what? The trial. Before Elias could ask, the chamber dissolved, not into darkness, into light. He found himself standing in an endless white hall. There was no ceiling, no walls, no visible end, only towering pillars stretching into infinity. Each pillar contained countless moving scenes, lives, wars, births, extinctions, entire civilizations rising and falling like waves. At the center of the hall stood 13 enormous stone thrones. 12 were occupied. One remained empty. The beings seated upon the thrones resembled the colossal watchers, yet they were smaller, only 30 feet tall. Their faces were smooth white stone. Each wore a crown carved from living mountains. None possessed eyes, yet Elias could feel them studying him. One of them spoke. Its voice shook the endless hall. "Builder Elias, you have arrived." Another continued. 50th hearing. A third. The charge remains unchanged. Elias looked around in disbelief. What charge? Silence. Then every watcher answered together. Compassion. He frowned. What? The word echoed across eternity. Compassion. Again, 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 until the pillars themselves seemed to whisper it. You are accused, another watcher declared, of choosing compassion over balance. Images appeared around Elias, not memories, evidence. A village burning, Elias opening a gate to rescue trapped children, another world collapsing, millions dying, another image, a city infected by darkness. Instead of destroying it, he had evacuated the survivors. The darkness escaped. 3 other worlds fell. Another. Every decision looked the same. Whenever forced to choose between sacrificing a few or risking many, he had chosen to save everyone. Every time, the final image appeared. Killen, standing before an open gate. Behind him, countless shadow beings. Not monsters. Families, children, elderly, terrified refugees. The ancient Elias stood opposite him. The gate was breaking. Only one choice remained. Close it or leave it open. Kalen reached out. Please, we can still save them. Ancient Elias closed his eyes. I know. Then he sealed the gate. Kalen vanished behind it, along with everyone else. The vision disappeared. The hall became silent. Elias couldn't breathe. No. The watchers spoke together. Do you remember now? Tears filled his eyes. I abandoned them. A familiar voice echoed behind him. No. It was Kalen. Elias turned. His old friend stood at the edge of the hall. No monstrous form. No countless eyes. Only the man from the drawing. Travel-worn. Exhausted. Smiling sadly. You saved us. What? Kalen walked closer. You still don't understand. The gate wasn't a prison. It was a shield. The watchers remained silent. Watching. Listening. Judging. Kalen continued. If you left the road open, the darkness wouldn't have reached one village. It would have reached every world. Elias looked between the watchers and Kalen. Then why are they judging me? The answer came not from Kalen, but from the empty 13th throne. A quiet voice. Gentle. Human. His own. Because that wasn't the crime. Slowly, a figure appeared upon the empty throne. It looked exactly like Elias. Older, perhaps 60. Hair streaked with silver. Eyes filled with unbearable sorrow. He wore simple gray robes. Around his neck hung an unbroken spiral pendant. He smiled. I've been waiting for you. The watchers bowed. Even Kalen lowered his head. The older Elias looked at his younger self. You finally made it back. The younger Elias whispered, Who are you? The old man answered with heartbreaking calm. I'm the version of you that never forgot. He rose from the throne. And I'm the one who sentenced us. The hall fell into absolute silence. Even the towering watchers lowered their heads. The older Elias stepped down from the 13th throne. His footsteps echoed across the endless white floor. Slow, measured, unhurried, as though he had waited thousands of years for this single conversation. When he stopped, only a few feet separated the two versions of the same man. The younger Elias looked into his older self's eyes. They weren't filled with wisdom. They were filled with exhaustion, the kind of exhaustion that only eternity could create. "You sentenced us?" The younger Elias finally whispered. The older Elias nodded. "Yes." "Why?" "Because there was no other way." "No, there's always another way." A faint smile crossed the old man's face. "You still believe that?" "You always did." The watchers remained motionless, not interrupting, not judging, simply witnessing. This conversation had happened before, perhaps not with the same words, but with the same people, the same choice. The younger Elias clenched his fists. "Tell me everything." The older Elias looked upward. For a moment, the endless hall dissolved. The pillars disappeared. The watchers faded into mist. Only darkness remained. Then a single light appeared, a campfire. The beginning. There was no village. There was no road. There were no watchers. The old man's voice became quieter. There was only one world. Elias watched the fire grow. Around it sat people unlike any he had ever imagined. Humans, giants, winged beings, creatures woven from light. Others whose forms constantly shifted. Different races, different civilizations. None feared one another. Children played together around the flames. Music filled the air. It was peace. This was the first world. The old Elias said softly, "It wasn't perfect, but it was together." The vision changed. The sky darkened, not with clouds, with cracks. Reality itself began breaking apart. Pieces of the heavens fell like shattered glass. Entire mountains vanished. Rivers flowed upward. Time fractured. Children became old. The elderly became infants. Cities disappeared between heartbeats. The world was dying. "What happened?" the younger Elias asked. The old man closed his eyes. "No one knows. We searched. We argued. We blamed one another. We went to war." The peaceful campfire vanished. In its place, endless battle. Friends turned into enemies. Entire species fought for survival. The first world burned. Then, the old Elias continued. Someone had an idea. A young man stepped into the vision. Not Elias, not Kalen, someone else. His face remained hidden by brilliant light. He held a hammer made from silver fire. With it, he struck reality itself. The cracks stopped spreading. For one precious moment, he built the first road. The old Elias whispered. He separated the dying world. The vision exploded into countless fragments. Each fragment became its own universe, its own sky, its own history, its own future. Millions of worlds, born from one, connected by invisible roads. The first builders saved existence. But the younger Elias already knew there was a price. The old Elias nodded. The roads required guardians. The vision shifted again. The mysterious first builder grew older, weaker. Every road he created stole something from him. Not strength, not life, memory. He gradually forgot his own name, his own family, his own face. Eventually, he forgot why he had built the roads at all. When he died, the old Elias said, someone had to continue his work. The younger Elias looked up. "Me?" "No." The answer surprised him. "You volunteered." Silence. "I wasn't chosen." "No." "I wasn't destined." "No." "You could have refused." The old Elias smiled sadly. "And that is why the Watchers respected you." The younger Elias felt something inside him break. "I chose this. Every time. You always had a choice." The endless hall slowly returned around them. The Watchers remained silent, listening, waiting. "Then why erase my memory?" The younger Elias demanded. "If I volunteered, why make me forget?" For the first time, the old Elias hesitated. He looked away, toward the empty distance beyond the pillars. His voice became almost impossible to hear. "Because I couldn't bear watching you suffer anymore. The younger Elias stared. What? You remembered every death, every village, every child, every friend, every world that couldn't be saved. The old Elias slowly removed the unbroken spiral pendant from around his neck. It no longer glowed. It looked ordinary, worn smooth by countless centuries. I remembered all of them. He handed it to his younger self. The moment their fingers touched, the memories came. Not one, not 10, millions. He remembered Mira dying beneath collapsing stars. He remembered Kalen laughing before sealing a gate from the outside. He remembered holding the keeper's hand as the old guardian quietly passed away beneath the silver tree. He remembered entire worlds singing songs written in his honor. He remembered civilizations cursing his name. He remembered children drawing spirals in the dirt without knowing why. He remembered every promise, every goodbye, every failure, every impossible choice. He remembered living for so long that the concept of years had stopped meaning anything. The flood of memories ended. Elias collapsed to his knees. Tears streamed down his face. His chest felt too small to contain the weight of what he now carried. The old Elias knelt beside him. I tried everything. I tried keeping the memories. I tried sharing them. I tried destroying them. Nothing worked. So I divided myself. The younger Elias looked up slowly. I became the traveler. I became the builder. I became the child. I became the keeper. I became every version that could carry part of the burden. You, the younger Elias whispered, created us. I created me. The watchers rose from their thrones. One stepped forward. The endless hall trembled. The builder has remembered. Another. The sentence may now end. The younger Elias frowned. What sentence? The old Elias closed his eyes. The one I gave myself. You still haven't told me my crime. The old man smiled. No, I haven't. He looked directly into the younger Elias's eyes. It wasn't compassion. The watchers remained perfectly still, waiting. My crime, the old Elias whispered, was hope. Silence. I believed that someday there would be another way. He laughed softly, a tired laugh. I kept delaying the ending. I kept dividing myself. I kept building villages. I kept giving myself another chance. The watchers spoke together. Hope delayed balance. The old Elias nodded. They're right, but... He looked toward the younger Elias. They're also wrong. Suddenly, a deafening crack echoed across the hall. One of the infinite pillars split from top to bottom, not from age, from force. The watchers turned. For the first time, fear crossed their expressionless faces. Another pillar shattered. Then another. Reality itself trembled. A voice echoed from beyond the endless hall. A voice unlike any Elias had ever heard. Warm, gentle, laughing. The same voice from a forgotten campfire. The same hidden figure who had built the first road. It spoke only 6 words. You finally remembered too much. The old Elias slowly looked upward. His face lost all color. He whispered a name he had not spoken in eternity. Master. Then, for the very first time, one of the watchers screamed. The scream echoed across eternity. It was not loud. It did not shake the endless hall. It did something far worse. It erased silence itself. For a single impossible moment, every sound that had ever existed vanished. No heartbeat, no breathing, no footsteps. Even thought seemed to stop. Then, everything returned at once. The explosion of sound nearly drove Elias to his knees. The watchers staggered. One enormous pillar collapsed into shimmering dust. Another folded in half as though gravity had suddenly forgotten how to work. The endless white hall, which had stood unchanged since before recorded history, was beginning to break. The older Elias whispered only one word. Impossible, yet there was no fear in his voice, only disbelief. The warm voice laughed again, not cruelly, not triumphantly, like an old teacher amused that a student had finally solved a difficult puzzle. My dear apprentice, You've always underestimated curiosity. The light surrounding the hall slowly gathered at its center. At first, it looked like morning mist. Then the mist condensed into countless glowing threads. The threads twisted together. A silhouette appeared, not gigantic like the Watchers, not divine, not terrifying, simply human, or at least close enough. He looked like an ordinary traveler. A weathered gray cloak rested across his shoulders. His boots were dusty. A wooden walking staff leaned casually against one shoulder. Silver hair reached the middle of his back. His beard was neatly trimmed. Laugh lines surrounded warm amber eyes. If Elias had passed him on an empty country road, he would have smiled politely and kept walking. Nothing about him suggested he was older than civilizations. Nothing except his eyes. Inside them, entire galaxies were being born. Entire galaxies were dying. Again, and again, and again. The Watchers bowed immediately. Every one of them, even the 13. Their mountain-sized crowns touched the endless floor. No command had been given. Respect alone compelled them. The travelers sighed dramatically. "Oh, stop that. I've told you before." It makes conversations awkward. None of the Watchers moved. The older Elias slowly fell to one knee. "Master," the traveler smiled, "you've grown older than me." A pause. Again. The younger Elias stared. His mind refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. "You!" The traveler looked at him. "And you?" His smile widened. "Have finally stopped running. You built the first road." "I did." "You created the villages." "No." The traveler shook his head. "I created one." He looked affectionately toward the older Elias. "He built the rest." Silence. The older Elias looked confused. "I remember—" "No." The traveler interrupted gently. "You remember believing that." "What?" The traveler walked between the broken pillars. His wooden staff tapped softly against the white floor. Every crack he passed sealed itself instantly, not repaired, as though it had never existed. "Memory," he said quietly, "is the least reliable form of truth." He stopped beside Elias. "Tell me, what color were your mother's eyes?" Elias answered immediately. "Brown." The traveler smiled. "Were they?" Without warning, a memory appeared before Elias. His mother, smiling. Her eyes? Blue. No. Another memory replaced it. Green, then gray, then amber, then brown again. Every version felt equally real. Elias grabbed his head. "Which one is true?" The traveler gently touched his forehead. "Exactly." The visions vanished. Memory changes. History changes. Stories change. But he tapped Elias's chest. "Character does not. You always choose the same thing." The younger Elias whispered, "Compassion." The traveler nodded. "Every time." The older Elias looked down. "And because of that, I failed." The traveler laughed. "You still believe success and survival are the same thing." The Watchers remained motionless. One finally spoke. "Builder, the balance continues to deteriorate." The traveler looked toward them. "I know." The sentence must end. The traveler sighed. "It probably should." The younger Elias frowned. "What sentence?" The traveler smiled gently. "You still don't know?" He pointed toward the older Elias. He sentenced himself. Then he pointed toward the Watchers. They agreed. Finally, he pointed toward Elias. "And you volunteer to carry it." "What sentence?" Elias repeated. The traveler became unusually quiet. For the first time, the warmth in his expression faded. Loneliness. The word echoed through the hall. The roads require someone who remembers every world, so that no civilization is ever truly forgotten. The older Elias closed his eyes. "I accepted." "You did." The traveler nodded. "But no living mind can survive infinite memory." "So," the younger Elias whispered, "I kept dividing myself." "Yes." The child. "Yes." The traveler. "Yes." The keeper. "Yes." The journals. Yes. The villages. Yes. They weren't prisons. No. They were homes. For pieces of you. Elias felt tears filling his eyes again. Every strange person he had met. Every familiar smile. Every impossible coincidence. None of it had been random. The ancient village wasn't merely protecting worlds. It was protecting him. Suddenly, the silver key inside Elias's pocket became unbearably hot. It floated into the air. The traveler watched it carefully. His smile disappeared. Oh, that's earlier than expected. The key cracked. A thin line of black light spread across its surface. The warmth inside the endless hall vanished instantly. Every watcher rose simultaneously. Not calmly. In alarm. One shouted, "Impossible!" Another, "The lock has broken." The traveler looked genuinely concerned. That, he whispered, shouldn't happen. The key split cleanly in two. Instead of falling, the two halves drifted apart. Between them, space itself opened. Not like a doorway, like a wound. Beyond the wound, there was no light, no darkness, no stars, nothing, not emptiness, absence, a place where existence itself had never been. Cold poured from the opening, not physical cold, the cold of forgotten names, forgotten dreams, forgotten love, the kind of emptiness that existed before the first heartbeat of creation. Even the watchers stepped backward. Even the first builder's face turned pale. He whispered, almost to himself, "No." I locked that away before the first world. The older Elias stared at the growing wound. His voice trembled. "Master, what is that?" The traveler answered without taking his eyes off the impossible void. The one place I prayed no one would ever remember. From deep inside the opening, something breathed, slowly, patiently, as though it had been asleep since before time began. Then two immense golden eyes opened in the darkness. They were not looking at the worlds, not at the watchers, not at the first builder. They were looking directly at Elias, and a voice impossibly ancient and impossibly gentle spoke from beyond existence itself. "My child, you finally found your way back." The golden eyes did not blink. They simply watched, ancient, patient, filled with a sadness so profound that Elias felt it long before he understood it. The wound in reality continued to widen, not tearing, remembering. Every inch it opened revealed less of existence, and more of something that had never belonged to existence at all. The first builder lowered his staff. For the first time since Elias had met him, his hands trembled. "No," he whispered, "you were never supposed to wake." The voice beyond the wound answered gently, "I never slept." A pause. I merely waited until someone remembered the right question. The watchers moved as one. 13 colossal figures stepped between the wound and the hall. Stone crowns blazed with white fire. The floor beneath them became covered in glowing geometric patterns older than language itself. One of them raised an arm. The boundary stands. Another returned to silence. The golden eyes remained calm. I have no wish to cross. The older Elias looked toward the first builder. "You know it." The builder nodded. "I do." "What is it?" For several heartbeats, no answer came. Then the first builder finally spoke, very quietly, as far as history remembers. "I built the first road." He looked into the impossible darkness. But history doesn't remember far enough. The wound widened another few inches. Within it, Elias began seeing impossible images, not worlds, not stars, possibilities. A river flowing through empty space before water existed. A tree growing without soil. A bird flying before the concept of sky had been imagined. Reality before reality. The child from beneath the silver tree suddenly appeared beside Elias. He looked frightened, truly frightened. "We have to close it." "Why?" The boy shook his head. "Because if it starts talking, you'll remember. I've been trying to remember this entire time. Not this." The child grabbed Elias's wrist. "You don't understand. Some memories should stay forgotten." The golden eyes shifted toward the boy. "My little keeper." The child's breathing stopped. You've grown. I told you never to call me that. The voice almost laughed. You were 7. You were adorable. Elias looked between them. You know each other? The child answered without looking away from the wound. I wish I didn't. The first builder stepped forward. His warm smile had vanished. You promised. The voice replied calmly. So did you. Silence. The older Elias slowly closed his eyes. I knew there was something before the first word. You told me there wasn't. The builder sighed. I lied. Every watcher turned toward him, not in anger, in surprise. One spoke. You concealed the origin. I did. Another. Why? The builder looked toward Elias. Because curiosity is stronger than fear. He raised his wooden staff. The air filled with glowing memories. Thousands of them. Then he swept the staff through them. Every memory shattered into tiny fragments. People can survive terrible truths. They cannot survive endless questions. The wound pulsed. The golden eyes softened. You always underestimated them. The builder smiled sadly, and you always overestimated them. Elias stepped forward. Stop. Every head turned toward him. I'm tired of half-truths. I'm tired of being protected. I'm tired of remembering pieces. He looked directly into the wound. If you know who I am, tell me. The endless darkness became completely still. Then, for the first time, a figure emerged. Not fully, only enough for Elias to see. A hand, graceful, human. It rested gently upon the edge of the wound. Its skin shimmered like starlight beneath deep water. Around its wrists curled living constellations. The first builder closed his eyes. I hoped you'd never see her again. Her. The hand was followed by the outline of a woman. She did not step into reality. Reality seemed to lean toward her. Her face remained hidden behind flowing strands of silver light. Her hair drifted like galaxies suspended underwater. She wore no crown, no armor, no symbol of power, only a simple white robe that shimmered with countless forgotten dawns. When she spoke, every memory thread in the hall stopped moving. Elias. There was no command in her voice, only affection, the kind that existed before words like mother had ever been invented. Without thinking, Elias whispered, I know you. The moment the words left his lips, a memory returned, not from one of his countless lives. From before all of them, there had been no stars, no planets, no time, only an endless ocean of silver light. He was small, not a child, not an adult, simply new. He sat beside this woman while she folded streams of light into tiny glowing shapes. She smiled and placed one into his hands. What is it? He had asked. A possibility. What does it do? It becomes a world. If someone chooses it. The memory ended. Elias staggered backward. His heart pounded violently. Impossible. The woman smiled. No, it was simply forgotten. The first builder whispered, Please, don't. She looked at him kindly. You still carry guilt that was never yours. The builder lowered his head. I broke the covenant. You fulfilled it. No, I chose. Exactly. The watchers exchanged uneasy glances. For beings who had judged civilizations for eons, they suddenly looked uncertain. Elias took another step toward the wound. What are you? The woman remained silent for a long moment, then answered, I have had many names. In your oldest memory, you called me? She smiled. Mother. The word echoed through every pillar. The child beside Elias squeezed his eyes shut. No. The older Elias whispered, I forgot. The first builder looked utterly defeated, and every watcher slowly knelt, not before the woman, before Elias. The younger Elias stared around in disbelief. What are you doing? One watcher finally answered. Its stone voice carried neither judgment nor authority, only reverence. We remember now. Elias frowned. Remember what? The watcher lowered its head even farther. The builder was never the first. A long silence followed. Then the woman finished the sentence. No. Her eyes never left Elias. You were. The endless hall shook violently. Every pillar cracked from floor to ceiling, not because of her words, but because somewhere beyond the broken walls of reality, the ancient village's silver tree had begun to burn. The flames were silver, not orange, not red, silver. They climbed the trunk of the ancient tree without smoke, without heat, without consuming the bark. Yet everyone who saw them understood the truth immediately. The silver tree was dying. Back in the village, Mira was the first to scream. No! Her voice broke as she stared upward. The massive tree that had protected the crossroad village for thousands of years now glowed like molten moonlight. Its crystal leaves burst into brilliant sparks. Each spark drifted into the night sky, and each spark carried away a memory. An elderly man suddenly stopped running. He looked around in confusion. Where am I? A mother forgot the face of the child she was holding. The child forgot how to speak. Two old friends stared at one another like strangers meeting for the first time. Across the village, people began losing pieces of themselves. The keeper dropped to his knees. It has started. Far above, the floating city rang every bell at once, not as a warning, as a farewell. Deep beneath the tree, the endless hall trembled. Hairline cracks spread across its pristine white floor. The first builder looked upward. The tree can't survive this. The older Elias closed his eyes. It was never meant to. The younger Elias turned toward them. Then save it. Silence. Finally, the woman stepped closer. Her bare feet never touched the floor. Reality simply formed beneath each step. The tree was never alive. She said softly, "It was a promise." Elias frowned. What promise? She reached toward him, not touching, simply letting her fingers hover inches from his face. The promise that memory would always find its way home. Another violent tremor shook the hall. One of the great pillars collapsed entirely. Inside it, an entire world faded away, not exploded, not destroyed, forgotten. Its oceans dissolved into mist. Its mountains became transparent. Its skies folded inward. Within seconds, it had never existed. Elias gasped, "No." The first builder watched in silence. They're disappearing. The worlds. Elias asked. The builder shook his head. Worse, the people who remembered them. The distinction hit Elias like a blade. A world could disappear. But if someone remembered it, perhaps it wasn't entirely gone. Now, even those memories were vanishing. The child looked desperately toward Elias. The tree is connected to every village. If it burns completely, no one will remember any road. Not even us, especially us. Outside the hall, the wound in reality widened again. The golden-eyed woman looked through it toward the burning tree. Her expression changed. For the first time, she looked afraid. They've reached the root. She whispered. The watchers stood instantly, every one of them, without a word. They vanished, not teleported. They simply became light, racing toward the village. The older Elias looked toward the younger one. It's happening sooner than before. Before? He nodded. It always ends with the tree. How many times? The answer came quietly. Too many. The younger Elias clenched his fists. No. The old man smiled sadly. I said that too. No. Elias repeated. I don't care how many times we failed. We're not doing this again. The first builder looked at him carefully. Then, very slowly, he smiled. There you are. What? The one thing, the builder whispered, that has never changed. Suddenly, the spiral pendant in Elias's hand shattered, not from damage, from completion. Instead of falling apart, it unfolded, like a flower. Inside, hidden for thousands upon thousands of years, rested a tiny seed, no larger than a grain of wheat. It glowed with soft silver light. The child's eyes widened. No. The older Elias stopped breathing. The first builder closed his eyes. I wonder where I hid it. The woman laughed softly. You didn't. You gave it away. Elias looked down at the tiny seed. What is this? The builder answered with absolute certainty. The first seed. The first tree? No, the first memory. The words echoed through the collapsing hall. Every crack stopped spreading. Every falling fragment froze in midair. Even time itself seemed to hesitate. The tiny seed floated upward. It circled Elias once, then gently settled over his heart. It didn't enter his body. It became part of his heartbeat. Thump. The sound echoed through every connected world. Back in the village, the burning silver tree paused. Its flames leaned toward the sky, as though listening. Children who had forgotten their parents suddenly remembered their names. Old friends recognized one another again. The little girl in the village square smiled through tears. I remember. The keeper looked toward the heavens. Hope returned to his tired eyes. No, he whispered, not hope. Beginning. Far beyond the mountains, the colossal watchers halted. They all turned toward the village simultaneously. Not because they had been commanded, because they had heard. The first heartbeat. Deep beneath the tree, the woman looked proudly at Elias. Do you understand now? He shook his head. Not completely. You never built the roads. You planted them. The roads, she smiled, grew. The builder laughed for the first time in what felt like eternity. I spent 10,000 years maintaining a forest. Without realizing I had forgotten the gardener. Before Elias could respond, the hall went dark. Not gradually. Instantly, the silver light vanished. The glowing pillars disappeared. The memories fell silent. Only the tiny seed over his heart continued shining. Then, from somewhere in the darkness, a child began crying. Not the child beside him. A different child. A newborn. The sound echoed through the void. The woman froze. The builder's smile vanished. The older Elias whispered one impossible sentence. Someone just created a brand new world. Silence followed. Absolute silence. Then the woman looked toward the distant cry. Her expression shifted from surprise to alarm. She whispered, that should be impossible, because no new world had been born since the day the first world was broken. The cry came again, soft, fragile, the unmistakable cry of a newborn taking its first breath. It echoed through the darkness beneath the silver tree, not loudly, yet every being in the endless hall heard it. The first builder, the older Elias, the child, even the distant watchers, now racing toward the burning village, suddenly stopped. Every one of them turned toward the sound. No one spoke, because everyone understood the same impossible truth. There had not been a new world in over 10,000 years. Not one. The woman closed her eyes. I can feel it. The first builder gripped his staff tightly. So can I. Elias looked between them. What does it mean? The builder answered quietly. It means the cycle has been interrupted. The cycle. The older Elias stepped beside him. For 10,000 years, when a world ended, its memories became the foundation for another. Nothing truly new was ever created. There were only, he searched for the right word, continuations. But this, the woman whispered, is a beginning. The tiny silver seed resting over Elias's heart pulsed. Once, the newborn's cry became louder. The darkness surrounding the hall slowly peeled away, not revealing another chamber, not another world. A nursery. It was impossibly ordinary. Sunlight filtered through an open window. White curtains fluttered gently in a warm breeze. A wooden cradle stood beside the bed. Fresh flowers rested on a small table. The smell of baked bread drifted in from somewhere outside. It looked normal, wonderfully normal. Inside the cradle, a baby slept peacefully. Its tiny hand rested against its cheek. Its breathing was calm. Its heartbeat echoed faintly through the room. The silver seed over Elias's chest beat in perfect rhythm. Thump, thump. The child took a slow step backward. No! What? Elias whispered. The child looked terrified. I know this room. You do? He nodded. I've dreamed about it. Every night. For thousands of years. The first builder slowly approached the cradle. Halfway there, he stopped. He couldn't move another step, almost as though an invisible wall prevented him. I can't enter, he whispered. The woman smiled gently. Of course you can't. Why? Because this world doesn't belong to us. Silence. The older Elias frowned. What do you mean? She looked toward the sleeping infant. For the first time, a world has been born, without the roads. Every word landed like thunder. No crossroads. Elias asked. She nodded. No watchers. No builders. No guardians. No memory trees. Nothing. The builder looked genuinely shaken. That's impossible. It was... She corrected softly. The baby opened its eyes. Deep gray, exactly the same shade as Elias's. The infant looked directly at him and smiled. The room vanished. Darkness returned. Elias felt something warm sliding down his cheek. He touched it. A tear. He hadn't realized he was crying. Why? He whispered. Do I feel like I know that child? The woman answered immediately. Because you do. Who is it? She remained silent. Elias. The first builder said quietly. There are questions whose answers change the future. I'm tired of riddles. I know. The builder sighed. So was I. Suddenly, the endless hall shook more violently than ever before. The wound in reality expanded with a deafening crack. Not outward, inward. Something was pulling existence toward it. Entire pillars slid several feet across the white floor. The remaining memory threads stretched until they resembled silver strings ready to snap. The watchers returned, not walking, falling. All 13 crashed into the hall with enough force to split the floor beneath them. One of them was missing an arm. Another's crown had shattered. Cracks covered their stone bodies. For the first time, the immortal judges looked wounded. What happened? The builder demanded. The tallest watcher struggled to stand. Its voice had become rough, almost human. The village, it paused, has fallen. Silence. Mira, the keeper, the children, the baker, the old woman. Every face Elias had met flashed through his mind. No. Another watcher continued. The silver tree is gone. The child collapsed to his knees. His outline began flickering, like a reflection disappearing from disturbed water. Elias rushed toward him. What's happening? The child looked up with tears in his eyes. He smiled weakly. Think. I'm being remembered. What? The child laughed softly. I always thought. Forgetting was dying. He looked toward the vanished tree above. But maybe remembering is... His body became transparent. Tiny particles of silver light drifted from his skin. No. Elias grabbed his shoulders. You can't disappear. I have to. Why? The child gently placed one small hand over the glowing seed. Because you don't need me anymore. Every memory Elias had recovered surged through him again. Not painfully this time. Naturally, like a river finally finding the sea. He remembered the ancient villages, the endless roads, Killen, Mira, the keeper, the first builder, the promise beneath the first stars, the burden, the hope, the loneliness, everything. The child smiled. There, you finally came back. His body dissolved into countless silver fireflies. They circled Elias once, then entered the glowing seed over his heart. The chamber became silent. The older Elias watched with tears in his own eyes. I've forgotten how much courage 7-year-old me had. Before anyone could speak, a thunderous crash echoed from somewhere beyond the endless hall. Not one, hundreds. The sound of worlds breaking. The builder turned toward the widening wound. His expression hardened. No. The woman closed her eyes. They found it. What? Elias asked. She slowly opened her eyes. The newborn world. The watchers raised their remaining weapons. The first builder lifted his staff. The older Elias drew a blade made from pure memory. Even the woman stepped forward. All of them, preparing for battle. Elias looked around in confusion. You said this world has no roads. It doesn't, the builder replied. Then how can they reach it? The woman answered with heartbreaking certainty. They aren't following a road anymore. She looked directly into Elias's eyes. They're following you. Far away, the newborn cried again. This time, the cry suddenly changed into laughter, then into a single word. Clear, impossible, undeniable. Dad. Every being in the hall froze. Even time itself seemed to stop.